Hey guys, we are starting a little bit early to give people a chance to hop on. I'm just waiting for Shakti to show up. Ooh, the selfie light is really in my glasses today. All right. Let me share this also to my page. Hey Tanner. All right, Shakti. Let me get you on. Why won't it let me invite you? Shakti, can you invite yourself? Oh, there we go.
Yo,
I was like, no, Mercury retrograde is gonna fuck us up.
I was able to invite myself for the first time ever. I was able to push that share screen button, whatever that button is. It did it.
Apparently there was a setting that I had to hit, so you're welcome.
Thanks. 3 shows to figure it out, but here we are.
I mean, whatever, right?
Yeah. Here we are.
Here we are. All right, I'm going to share this correctly to my page this week. That'll be helpful.
I'm going to do the same thing. Share correctly.
Sharing correctly is so important.
Hi, everyone, if you're hopping on. I'm going to play with the lighting in a second because I look mad dark, but say hi, let us know that you're on here. We're just sharing to our different pages so that everybody can hop on who wants to hop on. If you know someone who'd like to join us, please tag them or share this.
I have better lighting this time. I don't have the Spock eyebrows, but I do have the selfie light in my glasses. So. I rewatched that video and I was like, wow, those eyebrows are serious.
It was so amazing. I didn't want to say anything because I was kind of hoping that it would just stay. And I was like, please don't notice the Spock eyebrows. Please don't notice.
I like too how like every week I have a different background. This week it's a suitcase. I'm foreshadowing what's happening in my life, guys. Uh-oh, are you frozen, Shakti? Where'd you go? Hopefully she comes back. So I've talked to some people about Mercury retrograde, and Mercury retrograde, as far as how it affects you, is really up to you, whether or not you give your power away to it. But all right, here she's back.
Mercury, it got me.
That's what I'm saying.
Got me.
I was just
my babysitter. It got me with everything. This time Mercury came for me specifically.
I was just saying that, you know, I've talked to people about Mercury retrograde, and as far as how it affects you personally, it's up to you. You know what I mean? Like whether or not you're going to give your power away to it. But when it comes to communication, technology, and travel, that shit's legit. Technology for sure. That shit is legit.
Super legit. Super legit. Like communicating between my sitter and I was crazy. Like that story is insane. I'm like, what? Who does this happen to? Me.
As you're hopping on, tell us you're here, because we see people on, but let us know you're here.
Yeah. Oh my God, my lighting. What's going on? I feel like Autumn when she's on set and she just can't figure it out. Like, what is happening?
Where am I?
What's going on? What rep is this? What exercise is this? What is even happening?
What's my name? I don't know anymore.
That's how I feel. All right, we're gonna get this together, everybody. We're gonna get it together.
I know we have to get it together because this one is a really good topic, and everyone, I was sharing, everyone asks me about triggers. Like triggers. Do you know that? Do you know that song? I think it's a Korn song. I know it's a Korn song, but I can't remember the name of it. I think it's called Dead Bodies Everywhere, which I swear this is going somewhere. But I hear the song with triggers. It's like triggers, triggers everywhere, but like to the rhythm and the melody of Dead Bodies Everywhere. Anyway, that's no.
Do you mean Let the Body Floor? Because that is a Disturbed song.
No, it's definitely a Korn song. It's from the album Follow the Leader.
Oh, yes, you're right. That is correct.
Yeah, dead bodies everywhere. But that's what I hear. Triggers everywhere. Like every time I talk about triggers, I'm like, yes, seems legit.
Well, and it's in every life too. It's in every area. This is what I was just thinking about this before I hopped on. So I'm just gonna jump into this conversation because I was thinking about fitness in particular because that's my world and that's like how I help people. And I was thinking about the people that I talk to who are like curious about working with me and then they're like immediately put off the moment the conversation starts. They get like really defensive and they have me at like arm's length, even though I'm just like asking them questions and I'm like, I just want to know about you. Like, who are you? What are you? Because that's me by nature. And as soon as they do that, I'm like, yo, you really need me though. I'm like, the people who reject me the fastest are the people that I'm like, you really, really need me. You need to work with me. Just come on in. Because I feel like those are the people that are really, they're feeling the trigger, right? Like that's that edge, that like uncomfortable rub that they're experiencing. I'm like,
And I love, you're the same on this, like, I love working with people through their triggers, but I will also sometimes get people just kind of like going MIA, like all of a sudden they just drop off, and it's like because they got triggered and they don't want to look at it.
That's part of the trigger.
Because it's really fucking uncomfortable, right? And Shakti and I are really good about just asking the question that's going to go straight to you and you're going to get triggered. Because that's how we roll.
Yep. That's how we Exactly.
Like,
let's start with defining
a trigger.
Important as well.
Do you have a good definition for a trigger? Like, because my definition.
You're saying your legs, so now I can't hear your definition. What did you give a definition or did you ask
me? No, I didn't. I was asking if you had a definition that you really like.
So the simplest way I can think of a trigger is any contrast, really. Like any time that you are having a conversation or you're in a situation or you're experiencing a circumstance and your immediate response is like, ugh.
Victim mentality. That's what it is. That's what came to me. Anytime you immediately feel I'm a victim, something's happening to me. If someone else would change their behavior or if this circumstance wasn't happening, then I could be happy. If this happened, if this was different, then I could be happy.
Yep. Yeah. So anything that makes you ask like, why me? This isn't fair. This always happens to me. I can't believe this is happening. Like, that dialogue is very much in cahoots with what we call a trigger. So, and a trigger can be small. It can be like anything. You're listening to someone like chewing with their mouth open and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to stab this person. It can be something like that, or it can be like something that your partner consistently does. It just drives you insane. Every time they say a certain thing or they do a certain thing, you're like flying off your rocker, or every time you walk by the mirror, you have a certain reaction about yourself. That's a trigger. Like seeing yourself in the mirror triggers you, or seeing your weight on a scale triggers you. Like I work a lot with those specific kinds of triggers. But a trigger is really just anything that immediately makes you feel that contraction feeling and makes you feel displeased or angry or resentful or bitter with either yourself or someone in your life.
And typically what happens too is that the people we're closest to trigger us the most. So partners, children, family members, really good friends, they trigger us the most, right? And damn it totally left me. I was going to say something really good.
It'll come back. It'll circle around.
It'll come back. It'll come back. Mm-hmm.
Children are really great trigger makers. They're fantastic. You know why? Because they're such pure mirrors. So that's something I want to mention about triggers too, right? Like, the reason I think the people closest to us trigger us the most is because they're probably the most genuine kind of mirror that you can have. They're someone that's typically around you a lot and often, so they get to experience you very frequently and they get to be in a relationship with you frequently. And a lot of times, like in the case of, I'll speak for myself, like my child and my husband, like they're not really invested in how I perceive them. Like, they don't really want to look good for me. You know, that's not what they're about. Like, we're past there. You know what I mean? So they're just pure reflection. They're just reflecting right back to me. They're being themselves, their honest, God-given selves. And I am experiencing them. And then whatever is unhealed in me gets pissed immediately when they behave a certain way. Abby, you too? Mercury and Gatorade. That's what's going on. It's like Mercury and the moon. It's making our toddlers crazy.
What I was going to say earlier was that when it comes to, so, you know, we're triggered most by people who are closest to us. And what we typically find ourselves wanting to do is we want to fix them, right? We want to fix them because we think something is wrong with them, right? If only my child would act this certain way, if only my partner would act this certain way, if my parents would act a certain way, then I would feel better. So we only perceive what is wrong, my quotes raw, what's wrong with them or within them, instead of realizing that the only reason it's triggering us is because it's active within us. So this goes with positive traits, and I'm not going to say negative traits, but less than desirable traits in other people. The positive traits that you compare yourself to, that you're jealous of other people, you're envious of, the reason you have that reaction is because it's something within you, right? Like you see that potential within you. It's active within you. You have that potential, and so that's why you see it in other people. You're not going to see a positive trait in someone else that you're not capable of. Same goes with less desirable traits. If you're seeing a trait in someone else that triggers you, that pisses you off, that you're like, oh, what the fuck? It's because it's active within you. If it wasn't active within you, it would just roll off your back. You wouldn't even notice it.
And back to my mirror analogy, because this is perfect. That's exactly like standing in front of a mirror and being like unhappy with something you see and then trying to change the mirror. Like,
yep, I was just using that with a client today.
It is not going to change. The mirror is going to show you whatever is in front of it. So every time we have this confrontation with people in our lives, especially people closest to us, it's like, all right, take a breather for a second and recognize that we cannot behold in another person what is not active within you, what is not within you. You cannot celebrate in another person what you don't have within yourself. You cannot like get pissed at what's in another person that you don't have active within yourself. It's impossible because everything, this entire universe is just a giant reflection. Everything is a mirror. We're all like literally walking mirrors to each other. So even like the people that you follow, that you appreciate, that inspire you, the reason that is so is because there's something within you that has that same capability, that same potential, that same kind of light. And every time you're in relationship to these people or you experience them, it awakens that within you. And that's why you feel so called to being in relationship to them. That's why we reach out for mentors and coaches and we want to work with people, because there's something about their light that activates our own. That's the whole concept behind having mentors and having people who are like guides in your life. So I don't just want to address the negative components or the darker shadow side components. I think we should address the positive triggers as well, because they're all part of the same thing.
And also, I mean, if you're looking to work with a coach, be aware of any coach that keeps you in your comfort zone. I mean, that was something that was said in a comment earlier, right? Anything outside of your box, wheelhouse, and or comfort zones. The reason, the purpose behind triggers is to help you expand and grow and develop and evolve. You cannot grow without being triggered. So if you're wanting to work with a mentor, you know, Shakti was talking about being inspired by coaches. that's important to be inspired by who you're going to work with, but also make sure that you're working with someone who isn't just like triggering you for the sake of triggering you, but is really reflecting back to you. I mean, that's what Shakti and I do with our clients. We only reflect back what we see. We reflect back the patterns that we continue to see in our clients, because without that reflection, if you have someone who's constantly allowing you to stay small, to stay in victim mentality, to blame other people, you're not going to see change. You're not going to grow. So you want to be working with someone who is going to hold up that mirror to make you look at what is actually going on within you.
So, okay, we have one straight up example right here. So a lot of people comments coming in. I'm trying to keep up with them. There's a lot of them. But Kelly, you gave a really concrete example of a trigger, so I kind of want to explore that. Oh my God, Abby, and then I saw yours about your son losing his patience, and then like you asking him to be patient, then you losing your patience. I legit did that today. I literally did that. I am the worst example of this ever. Like, what am I doing right now? So I can completely relate. But Kelly's example, I think, is really fascinating because she has someone in her home who is close to her, obviously, and who wants her to be something that she's not. And so this is triggering you. This is making you like really like want to jump out of your skin. I think this is like a perfect example to pounce on and really talk about. So let's dissect.
Okay, so my first question when I always ask people, like when I'm working with triggers, is what is the emotion that arises within you when you're triggered? Beyond the anger, beyond the frustration, go deeper than that, because anger is really a secondary emotion. It masks what's really beneath that. So if you're feeling that she's wanting you to be something that you're not, I would imagine there's something along the lines of lack of self-worth, not feeling good enough, maybe not feeling seen, being put in a box, being kept small. Mm-hmm. So first pinpoint the emotion that's coming up for you.
If you're comfortable, you're not stretching or growing. Something's got to be. Yep, absolutely, Rachel.
100%.
Speaking truth. That's the truth. Yeah, so what is the thing that's happening when you experience this person? Because, you know, someone else, and this is how I frame it for myself. This is a very simple way I've been framing it for myself for a long time. Someone else living that exact situation could have a completely different response to the situation. And I've seen it all the time. You know why? When I go back home and I take my husband with me, and everything my family says, I'm like, like I'm having that reaction to like my parents and my family members. And my husband's like, what, why? Like all she said was, do you want, you know, this? And I was like, but you didn't hear the undertone.
There was the tone of the voice.
You know what I mean? And my husband's like, I don't know what you mean at all, because she literally just asked you a question and flipped your script. And I'm like, whatever. Because he's not having my experience. He's not having those same triggers mirrored. So two different people, same situation, completely different responses. So now let's explore, okay, what is it about you specifically in this situation that is experiencing that trigger? You feel sad. You feel grief.
And what are you making it mean about you? That's the other important question. What have you made this mean about you? Right? Because you are allowing. Yep. Because a lot of times, yeah, so like Shakti said with stories, we create stories based on unspoken words, right? We're assuming, going back to the law of assumption, we're assuming that someone thinks a certain way, feels a certain way, is going to act or react in a certain way. And so we act from that place or react from that place.
Yeah, so really depression because she has a certain way of doing things like cooking, attending the kid. So is this creating like comparison for you? Like you feel like your manner of handling your household is somehow like less than or insufficient, or because it's starting to sound like more like comparison almost.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's an inadequacy. You're going to definitely, if you feel inadequate, it's because you're comparing yourself to someone.
For sure. That's what that sounds like. And there's like two parts to this that's coming up for me. Just thinking about this example, right? Like there's the capacity to not let that affect you. Like the fact that she has a very specific way of doing whatever, like in the household, like she could very well do that. And then there's another component to this, which is like a boundary conversation, right? Like that's where it gets a little on the edge, because you do have to kind of, I feel, go into the trigger with this mentality of like, how can I stop making this mean something about myself? But then also there's this component of how do I stand in who I am, right? Like how do I take a stand for who I am and what I believe, and without being led by a trigger. Right. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. So the first thing to do if you're being triggered and you feel that setting a boundary is appropriate, that's something that you feel called to do, the first thing you need to do is take a step back and connect with yourself. So whether it's meditating, going for a walk, working out, you want to be connecting to the truth, to the core of who you are. Because if you react from the trigger, if you react to the contrast, you're going to perpetuate everything that you don't want is going to continue. So you may, okay, so if she's trying to control everything, my next question to you is, what are you trying to control?
Yes. The pushback. This is where it gets interesting, right? Because what we resist persists. So she's trying to control, and you're trying to resist her controlling, and between the two of you, y'all are going to explode that entire house. Because this is getting like, this is what it is. It's like these two opposing forces that are just resisting each other. You guys are consistently resisting each other.
She's mirroring to you, you perceiving that she's trying to control everything. She's mirroring to you how you are trying to control whatever in your life. So that's why I'm asking you, what are you trying to control? Because she's mirroring exactly to you where the, I call myself a recovering control freak. I understand control. And when I see someone else mirroring control to me, I'm like, okay, it's because I'm being a fucking control freak right now. Like this is no judgment. It's, where in your life are you being a control freak where you need to just let go and be like, it is what it is?
That's a good question. That's the beginning of that. And then this is where I start to like experiment. So in my own life, when this is happening, I think about what is the opposite behavior that I could do right now to this person, to this situation, right? So if I'm dealing with someone who's really, really controlling, I say to myself, what would happen if I just let them and I don't say anything? What if I completely ignore this person's actions 100% and just like do my own thing? And I have in fact done that. And what I've learned from going against the trigger so dramatically, and just like sometimes before you can change your mind about something, you can just change a behavior just to play with the behavior and see what happens. And sometimes that's enough to help you understand in your mind. Like, so you kind of have to play with that. But what I've discovered is that when someone like that doesn't have something pushing against them, they don't want to play anymore.
Yep.
I've really learned that that's true. Like once the resistance stops, they're like, oh, well, now I don't have anybody who's resisting what I'm doing, so whatever.
It's just like children, right? I was actually just talking to a client about this today with an actual situation with a child. Children, and it's not just children, but you see it typically in children. Children want attention because they're looking for love. Whether it's positive attention or negative attention, they want attention, right? So if a lot of times when it comes to less desirable behavior with children, we immediately react and give them the negative attention. Well, they're going to continue doing the behavior because they're getting attention. Children don't care whether it's positive attention or negative attention. They just want the attention. They just want the love. They're lashing out because some attacking and lashing out is a call for love. So when you respond to a child's negative behavior, and I hate using positive and negative, but you get what I'm saying. When you respond to a child's negative behavior, they're going to keep doing it because they're getting attention. It's the same thing with the pushback and the control, like Shakti said. So to make it stop, you just have to release. You just have to stop putting your energy into it. Same thing with children, to stop putting your energy. When a child's having a tantrum, walk away. Like make sure that they're safe. They're not going to, like hit their head on something, but let them freak the fuck out and walk away, because giving into that energy is only going to explode matters.
Two things I want to add. Number one, Jenny gave an awesome example of what you can do. She said she lives with her mom, so she understands. She listed everything that she controls that she actually benefits from and decided to let go. Then she listed all of her non-negotiables that she wanted to take a stand on. So that, I think, is a brilliant exercise. So something that you could also employ. And Kelly, the other thing I thought of was, in your case, so you're talking about how passive you are and you just let them, but it's bothering the fuck out of you. So you're really not passive. You're just playing into a passive role. You have told yourself that you are passive. So now your whole life, you've lived a very passive life. And now what you're realizing is that you're not actually fucking passive. You have a strong opinion about what the fuck is going on in your house. But because you've boxed yourself into who you are and the type of person that you are, now like going against that feels really inorganic and it makes you frustrated. So this is, to me, this is actually like a wake-up call for you. Like, you need to wake up to your own strength and capability. And if she is pissing you off this much with her sense of control, because she's probably a strong female, like she doesn't give an F what you think about her role in the household. And she's like illuminating for you where you are not living into that role. She's like shining a spotlight where you yourself are not taking a stand for what you actually want. And that is really making you pissed.
Yep.
Because of that role that you've been playing for so long. Like, that was like, boom, message. That was some psychic shit that just came through.
Well,
hear that. That one. You.
Two things. When we're passive, when we go into people-pleasing behavior, we go into people-pleasing behavior because we want to receive love from that person. We have given our power away to them to receive love from them because we're not giving it in some way, shape, or form to ourselves. The second thing, just as Shakti was saying, this is a wake-up call, right? So you have a choice. You can either go into this looking at, I'm a victim, this is happening to me, right? You're being triggered. Or you can see it as a gift and be grateful, be appreciative of the opportunity, because this contrast is showing you how you want to, shift and change and develop within your life. So it's always a choice.
Fuck yeah. And the other thing to do with this, like, really study her, Kelly. Get curious about her. Instead of resisting her, get curious about her. Fucking take notes. Bring out a notepad. Start taking notes of all the shit your mother-in-law does that's really intense because she's got strong character about her. Take notes, because the very thing that I'm sensing, the very thing about her that triggers you so much is what you admire about her, that you wish you could do, that you wish you could be. So write those down, because those are qualities that are trying to wake up in you. And she's just doing you the favor. She's just delivering it by way of reflection, because the universe is a biatch like that.
Yep.
Yeah. Switch the flip. Like,
yep.
Switch the entire story into, how can I learn from this woman? Like, instead of like resisting her consistently, how can I learn from her? And even bring her into the story. Like, I'd really love to learn more about how you are so strong, or how you are, like, dude, she's gonna change. Like, if you said that to her, she'd be like, oh, let me share with you. Like, I can see it now. Jenny just said, I bet she'd love to be your mentor. Yeah. You'd be surprised how that changes. Just you changing the script and like getting curious about someone instead of like pushing against them so much. That could be game changing fast.
Well, and I'm also sensing that she's kind of pushing back because she feels like she needs to be seen. Somewhere in her life, she probably was not seen. She probably was not validated. And she may not know how to give that to herself. So then it's also shifting into the energy of compassion. Can you find compassion for this woman who may feel like she's not seen, she may feel just as inadequate as you're feeling, right? But you're perceiving it a certain way. So once you shift into compassion, it also changes everything. So yeah.
And here's the flip side to this. So we respond one of two ways typically to like everything in life, right? Like, we either become super incredibly passive or we become super aggressive. Like, as triggers and traumas go, we tend to go one of two ways, just like generally speaking. And it sounds like she went the other way, where she went really empowered, really strong, really in order to compensate for this not being seen thing. And your passivity probably triggers the shit out of her. Like, you being as passive as you are in your role probably makes her even more triggered. So it brings out that side of her personality even more. So here you guys are in this very like delicate dance, right? Of yin and yang, literally mirroring each other. She's reading a lot of positive relationship instead of coming to me with things that she doesn't like. She goes to my husband and complains to him. This though, like, I'm with Anne on this. I'm with Anne on this. I feel like she does that because no tiene confianza. This is Spanish. I'm just throwing it in there because we speak Spanish. Like, no tiene confianza contigo. She doesn't have that sense of like trust or camaraderie with you because, again, she's not feeling seen. You're not feeling seen. She's not feeling seen. And it's more comfortable for her to go by way of your husband because that's her son. It's a more comfortable route. So maybe the answer here is really like creating this like relationship, actually going out of your way to create a real relationship with this person and maybe opening like a window of trust. So instead of you guys just triggering the shit out of each other constantly, you're now like blossoming a relationship where you can have more open dialogue, and then it won't feel so much like you're being betrayed or like someone's going behind your back, because I can pretty much guarantee that the source of that is really just comfort and trust.
Yeah, my only caution moving forward with open communication is just, again, be aware that we are in Mercury retrograde, right? So yes. Make sure that you are grounding yourself, centering yourself, connecting to yourself first. And, you know, verbal communication is always better than written communication, especially during this time. But yeah, I mean, I think what Shakti said, I mean, it's most likely a gift to open up your communication in a way that you haven't had before.
And Kelly, this falls into alignment perfectly with everything you've been saying in our previous videos of wanting to like grow more into who you are. Like, you're on this journey of awakening and you're getting awakened. You are getting
you are getting what you're asking for. Let me tell you.
You are being delivered, girl, tenfold. The problem is that when we ask for awakening, y'all, this falls perfectly into triggers. When you ask to be awakened, it is going to come as a shitload of triggers. That is how you become awakened. Okay? Yes. You think it's all going to be like unicorns and butterflies and riding on some rainbow waves, but that is not what awakening means. When you say you want to be more whole, more integrated, you are saying, I take the challenge of looking at my contrast, the triggers within me, the places where I am unhealed, and I am willing to take them and heal them. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, let me tell you a little story. So at the beginning of 2017, I thought, oh, I really want to like expand, you know, and become this amazing person and have things really grow in my life. I literally said the words, bring it on, universe. That is the worst thing. Do not ever, like, there needs to be a warning sign, like, warning, do not ever tell the universe, bring it on, because that bitch will bring it. 2017 was one of the worst years I've ever had. That I fully believe it's because I said, bring it on, bitch. No. Second of all, when you pray, when you ask for guidance, when you ask for clarity, when you ask to be awakened, side note, ask for it to be done gently. Not to say that you won't ever, you're going to experience contrast, you're going to experience triggers, but ask for it to be done gently and positively whenever possible, because the universe is listening, God is listening, Source is listening, and how you ask for things to come into your life fucking matters. Take it from me, it fucking matters.
Straight up. So, just a little, you know, heads up that this is all part and parcel of this conversation. And Kelly, just to follow on that wavelength of you feeling like I am tired of her, like, the more you resist, the more it persists. So
yes, Annie, I do tell you that all the time. I'm like always reminding my club members, like, gently, positively, for the love of God. Like, if you learn nothing else from me, learn that.
Grace I would like it gracefully. I would, this is where I go off the deep end. I would like it lubed, please. Thank you. Not, that would be great. That would be great. Appreciate it. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're just gonna get it like it is, and it is not fantastic.
Well, and I think too, like, so I mean, for me on my journey, it really took me a while to really understand the concept of God, source, spirit, universe, and I knew that there was this power, right? But I didn't really understand how powerful this power was until, like I said, I just said, bring it on. And so you think like, oh, this is, you know, law of attraction and it's spirituality and it's fun, and then you get your ass handed to you and you're like, fuck, is this what I asked for? Because I would like to go back to sleep, please. But the problem is that once you begin to awaken, you can't go back to sleep. Like, you can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unexperience what you've experienced. And so once you start to awaken, you're on that path, guys. There is no turning back. Like, welcome, because you're not going back to where you were.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe don't resist that either while you're at like, you know, just sit with the trigger, sit in that space of compassion, look at your situation, and then decide, like Jenny said, what is it that you're willing to work with and what are your strong boundaries, and get clarity on that. But triggers are always information. More than anything, I just want you guys to understand on this video, like, triggers are just information. They're just feedback. It's just a feedback loop to you to know where you are still not healed. That not healed could be, I don't have strong enough boundaries. I need more dang boundaries in my life. Or it could be, I really want that quality and I don't have it and it makes me mad when I see it in someone else. Or it could be, I'm sick and tired of that type of person being in my reality. I'm not dealing with that anymore. I'm ready to clear that up so I can move on from that person. But the trigger is just presented to give you feedback, information about where you need to go to do some more work. You didn't, and that's the thing, is we're always going to have triggers because that's the reason we incarnated, was to continue to work through the contrast and evolve, you know. And what ends up happening, I don't know how Anne will feel about this, but I do. It's not like life gets any easier no matter how successful you get, or if you have an amazing partner or whatever. Like, it's not that it gets easier, it's that you sort of find this like understanding of what's happening, right? Like, you begin to grasp that you don't have to react every single time you get triggered. You don't have to just spew forth like a response every single time you get triggered. That there is a pause, as we talked about in another one of our videos, between stimulus and response, and you have a choice in that pause to actually sit with the trigger and ask it, what are you trying to teach me right now? I think that's a super valuable question. What is this trigger trying to teach me right now? That's like gold. Just that question.
Well, and a lot of times we say that we want certain things, right? We want success. We want to hit our goals. We want more financial freedom. We want the relationship. We want all these things, but we want all the things without experiencing the contrast or the growth opportunities in order to become that person. And I always remind my clients, like, you have to remember that you are in the process of becoming who you need to become in order to receive what you've been asking for. And that has been one of the most helpful things in my own personal life. Like, I've reached out to Shakti multiple times. I'm like, fuck, this is happening because I didn't ask for this specific trigger, but I asked for this to be healed within me so that I could, you know, help in this way or serve in this way or have this lifestyle that I wanted. But I had to really go through that contrast in order to not be triggered by certain things anymore. You know, like you become triggered by the same thing over and over and over again. You're like, okay, this is the last time. Like, this is the last time that we go through this cycle. The second thing that I wanted to say is that I find that I'm most triggered when I'm disconnected from myself. I am most triggered when I am not giving to myself. I am most triggered when I have somehow put myself on the back burner and I didn't even realize it, right? So that's another thing that I asked myself almost immediately when I'm triggered, how am I not giving to myself? How am I not showing up for myself? Where have I been putting myself on the back burner? Typically, I become annoyed with someone else because I'm wanting from them what I'm not giving to myself. So a lot of times when we're triggered, ask yourself, how am I not, or how am I either withholding love for myself, or how am I, what am I needing to give for myself that I am relying on them for? Because once you stop relying on them and give it to yourself, they're going to naturally give it to you, because that's how it works.
Amen. And the same goes for food. Just the FYI. Like, if you get triggered by seeing other people eat certain things that you know aren't good for your body or don't work for your body or whatever, it's again because you're wanting food to give you something that you're not giving to yourself. You're wanting anything external. We talked about this in our addiction video. Anything external that triggers you, it's because you're wanting that thing to do something for you that you're not doing for yourself. And that goes for food, it goes for relationships, it goes for circumstances, across the board. Also, yep. Abby, I read your story. That's hilarious.
So true. Like, it's true.
Literally, that is such a perfect example of what Anne just said. Like, please don't do that, you guys. Don't ever say that.
Do not ever say the words, how bad could this get? What else could happen? Like, no, just always, no. So when shit's hitting the fan, here's something for you, that little nugget to take away. When shit's hitting the fan and you want to say what else could happen or how bad could it get, repeat after me. Things will always work out because they have to. Things will always work out because they have to. If they haven't worked out yet, then it's just going to work out. You're not going to die. Like, I can pretty much guarantee that you're not going to die. Something is going to work out. But you have, I mean, but you have to focus on, it's ego that's trying to freak out, or ego is freaking out, right? Ego's going to worst case scenario. Ego thinks it's going to die. But no, don't ever go there.
How good can this get? How good can this get? Just make it ironic.
Yeah.
How good can this get? Just say it, switch it. Just don't say the other one.
Switch it. No, the other one I tell myself is, this is all working out for me.
Yeah.
Like, because it is. It's all working out for you. You just can't see it yet. You can't see how it's working out for you. But just because you can't see how it's working out for you doesn't mean it's not working out for you. I guarantee that, we talk about, we all have this GPS. We all have the internal GPS. And just because it feels, ego's telling you that you're off the path, that you've somehow like lost your way, you haven't. Mm-hmm. You have a GPS. Your soul is showing you where to go. So every time you're unsure, tap into what feels most loving right now, what feels the best right now, what feels like the truth right now. And if it's fearful, it's not the truth. Truth is always love. So tap into that within you to ask yourself, what do I want to do right now? What would feel good? What would feel loving? And follow that instead.
I'm trying to think too what Abraham says about contrast. He says contrast, not triggers. Mm-hmm. And I think the whole key piece with him and contrast is just understanding that your emotions are an emotional guidance system. They are literally a GPS to your soul. So it is how your soul communicates to you. You are on path. You are struggling on veering off path. You are, you're bumping into something that has information for you. That's what your emotional center does. So don't resist that experience or that feeling that doesn't feel good. Get curious about it. Get curious about your triggers. Get curious about that feeling of displeasure or concern, or just befriending those emotions is really powerful. And this has really transformed my relationship to anxiety, particularly. Yep. It has really allowed me to see my anxiety differently and I no longer tell myself I just can't wait to be free of it. No, I just want to befriend it. I want to understand what it is. And when I hear that dialogue start, I just talk myself out of the dialogue, just like it's trying to talk me up, like ramp me up. I ramp it down, and there's a relationship now. And I think that was my way of not resisting, because when we're resisting experiencing anxiety, or we're resisting the depression, or we're resisting the negative emotion, it just gets worse. It amplifies. The trigger just gets gigantic, you know, and then it takes over so much of who you are. So by not doing that resistance work, it has been life-changing, really.
And as for how I work through anxiety, because I experience a lot of, I mean, Shakti and I both experience a lot of anxiety. It's something that we've really had to be very aware of and work through. And like she said, it doesn't go away. It doesn't ever go away. But when I'm experiencing anxiety, I ask myself, what have I given my power to? If I'm experiencing anxiety, I no longer have my power. I'm no longer connected to myself. So I've given it to someone else. I've given it to money. I've given it to outside circumstances. I've given it to something outside of me. And as soon as I can pinpoint where is my power, what have I given it to, and I reel it back in, the anxiety goes away.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. So I just wanted to answer Kelly's question because she was talking about triggers with food, and I said this is why a support group matters so much. This is why I'm a huge proponent of support and accountability groups and community that is like-minded. The reason I talk about this day in and day out is because it makes a massive difference. When you have a safe space to go into, to explore these feelings with other people who are doing the same thing you are doing, who understand your journey from a very personal perspective because they are on their journey, it helps you so much to not feel alone. I mean, Anne can attest. I mean, in our particular fitness community where we support each other with emotional eating and things of that nature, like, the support is ridiculous. It's so positive and it's so nonstop every day, every hour, you know, and how many people have said this is the only safe space I have to come in here and talk about this. It's constant. It really matters. It really matters.
Well, and I think that's absolutely why you and I have each created communities in what we do, you know, because a lot of people experience, what do I want to say? It's very rare in our lives that we have the majority of people on the same path that we're on. Typically, the majority of people in our lives have no fucking clue or understanding of what it is that we're doing. And it's very, you know, for a while, Shakti was kind of like my main person who I went to, you know, until I kind of ventured out and found some other people. But it's the majority of my friends and family members were people who didn't understand my journey. And so it feels very lonely. And it is really important to be either working with people or be surrounded by people who understand your journey.
Yep. I mean, our friendship alone with each other has been so invaluable to our personal growth. And from that friendship is where our groups were even born. That's how we even came up with groups, was because of our friendship. Like, wait a minute, this is really good. Like, if we just made a group of people that did a similar thing, this would be rocking. You know what I mean? Like, that's on point.
But I will tell you that Shakti has triggered the shit out of me more times than I can count. You know, but I didn't run from her. I was like, she's teaching me something. She's helping me see what needs to be looked at so that I can grow into the person that I'm wanting to become.
Yes. That's what good friends do, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't want friends who are condoning all of your behavior.
So she shared, recently experienced trauma on a spiritual level, and it triggered me on some of my mental health issues. It's kind of a long story.
Okay, I missed the first comment.
She was just talking about how having certain empathic or intuitive things trigger the ego, and I asked her for clarification on what she meant. And so this is what she shared. She experienced trauma on a spiritual level, and it triggered some of her mental health issues. So,
I mean, it's hard for me. It's hard without knowing the story.
Same.
But I will say, well, I would, for something to read when it comes to mental health, one of my favorite books is Tears to Triumph by Marianne Williamson. And sorry, I have a cat. Those of you who know me know that I have cats. And Guinea loves to get in on these conversations. So she's like back and forth and back and forth. So she talks a lot about mental health, depression, and how a lot of times we struggle with mental health issues because, like I've talked about, we have a disconnection, with ourselves. So, I mean, it's up to you if you want to share more, publicly or not, or if you want to give a little more details.
I do have something to tell you, Tanner, that without knowing this story, whatever happened, the situation that happened, a component of that story is you not taking ownership of your intuitive boundaries. So you happen to be very intuitive, you happen to be very empathic and open, but you're not taking that seriously. You're not taking that capability seriously. So then something has the ability, potential to step in and take up that space and manipulate it in a way that doesn't feel good. That was just a message that came through for you.
Yeah, for anyone who taps into their spiritual gifts, we all have spiritual gifts. It's just a matter of whether or not we tap into them. But when we tap into them, it's our responsibility to take care of ourselves on that level. Like, it's our responsibility to set those boundaries, and to really take care of ourselves and making sure that our energy is on point. I mean, I'm
gonna throw some unsolicited advice out there that if you are a light worker and you are doing spiritual work and you are getting shit-faced, or you are getting intoxicated all the time, or you're poisoning your body with food that isn't good for you, you are disrespecting your work as a light worker. And you need to quit that shit effective immediately, because that lowers your vibration, which makes you susceptible to attack psychically, spiritually, on multiple levels, and it hurts you.
Yep.
So if you are on this planet doing this work, clean it up. Clean it up. Because you cannot do your work, you cannot show up and serve when your energy, your vibration is down, you're open to all kinds of entity attachments or whatever that is out in space, or negative vibration or depression or anxiety that you pick up from other people, especially as an empath. You have a receptivity level that is so high to that kind of stuff, and the more you abuse your physical body, the more you drop your capability to actually shield yourself energetically, allowing those experiences to then really penetrate and take a hold of you, and then you start believing it's you when it's not actually. That's the danger of being an empath and not taking care of yourself, really taking care of yourself. You can start to absorb other people's mental health issues, think they're yours, their emotional patterns, think they're yours. It can get crazy. So that was very unsolicited, but a lot of people needed to hear that on this call. So there you go.
Well, it goes back to our foundation of self-care, which you and I preach and preach and preach and preach and preach, that you can't do, like, I won't touch anything else with my clients until we have solidified a unshakable foundation of self-care, because without it, nothing else matters. If you're not taking care of your body, your mind, and your soul, I don't want to hear about it, because nothing else fucking matters. Until you have that foundation, nothing else in your life is going to change. And I know that Shakti feels the same. Like, this is why we work together, because everything else is completely a moot point. You have to go back to the basics. If you haven't completed the basics, then that's where you begin.
I'm reading Tanner's sort of giving her story. Okay, so there was a passing in her group of friends. The people that she's been spending time with, bonding with, were suddenly thrown into grieving. My own grief felt misplaced, but I was so unprepared to guard myself. I've never experienced this before, and at this volume and intensity. Because my grief and feelings felt misplaced and inappropriate, I became triggered in ego. So you're saying your grief felt misplaced because you weren't that close to them, like you weren't involved in the group for as long. So you felt like in some way, shape, or form you should not have experienced the level of grief that you were experiencing. Because I can tell you right now, being an empath, you are not only feeling your feelings, you're feeling everybody else's feelings in that group that is grieving over a loss. So your feelings are probably amplified tenfold, which was very disconcerting for you because you didn't understand what was actually happening. And that's what freaked you out. I have a sense that's probably what happened. Yeah, you feel everyone's.
So then it also goes back to protecting yourself, you know, energetically protecting yourself when you're around people as well.
Here's the thing, Tanner, though, and I'm gonna call you out just a little bit, but I love you, but that's what coaches do. From experiencing you and your journey, there's been a lot of not taking care of yourself the way that you know you need to take care of yourself energetically for the type of work that you do. You're extremely gifted, you're extremely sensitive, and you're putting yourself in situations where you're not fully connecting to yourself, and then you're engaging with a bunch of people who are probably not at a place energetically that you are. Are you hearing what I'm saying? So they're not vibrationally at the understanding that you are, which is fine, but then you have to know going into those groups that you're going to be enmeshing yourself with energy that's just different in its understanding of things like empathy or, you know, feeling expansion when grief happens or something like that happens. And if you're not spending dedicated time sitting on your pillow, taking care of yourself, doing the things that you know you need to ground yourself and stay connected to the core of who you are, when you go into those spaces, you're going to scatter and you're going to lose touch with who you are and you're going to take on everyone's everything. That's
I'm sensing too, I know that Shakti knows you better than I do, Tanner, but I'm sensing that you put yourself in these situations. You surround yourself with people who you feel will validate and accept you because you're not validating and accepting yourself. So you continue to hang out with people who aren't, like Shakti said, aren't a vibrational match to you because you haven't fully accepted who you are. And if you're not taking care of yourself, you're never going to get to that level. Like if you don't take care of yourself, again, body, mind, and soul level, then you're going to constantly be looking for acceptance, love, and validation from other people. And you're going to consistently be hanging out with people who don't jive with you. So it goes back to the basics.
And that doesn't, I mean, they could be wonderful people. They could be great friends. That's not like a criticism on their character. It's just, I, like Anne, sense that you are afraid of becoming, really stepping into who you are, your spiritual care, your self-care, the knowing of who you are, and becoming that woman, becoming that spiritual woman, because that is very isolating. And you imagine that you will have to separate from everybody that you know, and that, you know, you will no longer be accepted or you no longer be seen. So you, like Anne said, go into these groups that you do feel you could be seen in and remain there, even to your detriment energetically.
And I can give an example. I mean, Shakti and I know people in our lives. We know people mutually who are wonderful people, but don't necessarily jive with us in the way that they used to jive with us. And I've spent time with them, and I felt for a really long time like I had to hide who I was because I wasn't confident in my gifts. I wasn't confident in who I was because a lot of times I allowed them to dictate who I was, right? I allowed them to define who I was, you know, and if I started to speak out, I received pushback, and that was uncomfortable. So I just stayed quiet and I stayed small. But this last time I hung out with them, I was like, it was suffocating to go back into the box. And at the point that it becomes suffocating to go back into the box, you will finally break out.
I was so utterly unprepared to guard myself on that level. It was so intense and jarring. I do have people who are supporting my spiritual work, and they have acknowledged my trials lately. You're also growing. I mean, you're growing. So what your capacity to feel now is completely different than maybe your capacity to feel a year ago. Like, the spiritual work, especially right now, girl, it is on high. It is on high. Evolution is happening fast. You need to be aware of that, like, legit.
The other thing I was going to say, reading this last comment from Tanner, you know, you said, I have people who are supportive of my spiritual work, but the first thing I received is that you're relying on people to support you instead of you supporting yourself. You should have people supporting you in your life. That's really important, but don't ever rely so heavily on the support from others that you stop giving it to yourself.
That. And girl, yes, I do know. Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? Yes, I know. Yes, I know, because I am swimming in it right now. Barely, but swimming. It is hot right now. You can't play games. Like, light workers right now, let me explain something to you. You guys cannot play games anymore. You can't keep drinking and getting shit-faced. You can't keep intoxicating your bodies. You can't keep eating poisonous food. It's not working anymore. You're going to get sick fast. You're going to have this overwhelming, like, psychic attack experience. You're going to have, like, dizzying experiences. You're going to think something's horribly wrong with you and you have a medical condition. You're going to think you're insane and you need pills. Because the tolerance level for us to put things into our body that's intoxicating is getting very, 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 very low. And this is happening across the board to everyone. But with light workers in particular, because we came here to serve in a very specific way, you just don't have room for that anymore. And you have to accept this about who you are. You like have to move beyond this. You cannot keep falling into these, like Anne said, into these circles that don't support you, into your own non-supportive patterns. It's just not working anymore.
That's good. It's good, Tanner.
That is good. Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful time right now, guys. Like, energetically, it is a beautiful time if you're doing the work and if you're showing up. But you've got to show up. You've got to take care of yourself. You've got to take ownership of your life. You've got to look those triggers in the face and be like, I'm not backing down until I resolve this. Like, you have got to do the work. No more flying by, no more like cruising and tucking things under the rug and just harboring the resentment. That's gonna fucking kill you. Like, don't do it.
The days of victim mentality are over. Like, over. So over.
Gone to another dimension. We don't have time for it, y'all. We don't have time for it. The other thing is, and probably in closing, because of this conversation we've talked about a lot and we've explored a lot, which is wonderful. Understand that you came here to serve on some level or another. Doesn't matter what your role is. Being a mother, working outside the home, being a light worker, being all three, being whatever your role you feel you were called here to do, you came here to serve. And right now we're at a point energetically where you are being called to action in a major way. So many people are having all these weird things happen in their body and their dreams are all freaking crazy and they think they have all these psychiatric conditions and they're like Googling WebMD for everything that's ever happened, they're feeling every symptom. And more likely than not, you are fine. And what's actually happening is that you're evolving internally from the inside out. And it's your job to help yourself evolve. So please sleep the amount of time you're supposed to sleep. Please find a mentor that you need for where you are in your journey. Please get into a community that is going to support you. Please be mindful of your thoughts. Be mindful of what you eat. Move your body. Please do the things you know you need to do, because we just do not have the time we can't take the risk on the planet any longer to have a population of primarily unconscious people. There's no room for that. We need to wake up and we need to take action, and it starts on a very individual basis. We might have big ways we want to serve, but we can't really show up there if we can't even do it for us. You can't show up for anyone else if you can't even show up for you. Huge.
No, you cannot truly show up and serve if you don't know how to work through your triggers, because you can't serve and be triggered at the same time. You can't teach. So for me, if I'm triggered, I can't teach. I have to work through my trigger, and then I can teach from my trigger, or, after the trigger, I can teach about my trigger, which I do openly. But if I'm in the moment of a trigger, I can't show up for a client. I can't serve. I can't teach. I can't hop on here. Like, I can't do anything because the open channel is closed. So I have to, it's so important to learn how to work through your triggers, so that you can show up in your gift and really tap into your calling and do what it is that you're meant to do. But everything starts with you.
Abby, I love Abraham Hicks. I absolutely love it as a starting point because you can find videos on YouTube for free. There's a ton of free footage of Abraham Hicks online. And Abraham is a consciousness channeled by a woman called Esther. And so you'll hear them speak in third party, like we, when it's her speaking. And so that concept is a little bit like woo-woo for you to wrap your head around. But the messages that come through this woman are gold mine when it comes to understanding contrast and how to navigate contrast. And it's to me, it's a very true conversation on spirituality without religiosity. Like eliminating the religious component and really honing in on what is our role in this universe, in this planet, and this existence that we've been given. Like, what is our relationship to universe? So I would say start listening to those videos because I personally found them to be really, really powerful. I think Wayne Dyer is another really powerful teacher that we both love. We both read a lot about.
And I think it depends too. Pay attention to what you connect with, because Shakti and I definitely had the same resources, but we went about them in a different order. So Shakti really resonated with Abraham first, and I really resonated with Wayne Dyer first. I had to understand the concepts through Wayne Dyer before I could really understand and handle the concepts of Abraham. Where I began was with Gabby Bernstein. For me, I needed for me, it was like really basic. Because I'm now a student of A Course in Miracles, but A Course in Miracles is really, really dense. So I needed Gabby Bernstein. I needed Marianne Williamson to really help with the foundational before I could dive into anything else. So Gabby Bernstein would be another one if you're looking for super beginner.
See, Gabby didn't resonate with me at all, but I also wasn't at a stage when I was introduced to Gabby. I was not beyond her concepts, because I still think she's a powerful teacher, but I just wasn't there. I wasn't at the vibration of where Gabby Bernstein was. Still I'm not at where she is.
Well, and I'm not anymore. So I agree with you. You know what I mean? Like, you get to a point where you're like, teachers aren't always going to resonate with you. You grow, and other new teachers kind of come into your life. But so, take these suggestions and see what resonates with you, and always listen to what feels good for you.
Also, Deepak Chopra, I love for a very specific reason, because Deepak is a Western doctor. So he is trained in allopathic medicine, and he's also trained in Eastern Ayurvedic medicine. So his books are phenomenal because they're a bridge between the world of spirituality, which he talks about a lot, intuition and empathy, and also biologically how it relates to the body from a chemical, biological, physiological perspective. So he is freaking brilliant to read. Yep. You are so welcome, Abby. Our pleasure. So we have spent an amazing hour with you guys. Thank you for hopping on, for having this conversation, and for really bringing your questions. I feel like every week we get more questions, and we get more people really opening up and sharing their heart, which is exactly the concept behind doing this. We wanted to do this kind of environment with a little humor and a little bit of crass language and a little bit of who we both are, which is a hot mess of press most of the time. But we really are invested in you guys doing this healing work and understanding and having perspective that you're not alone, and that you don't have to do this journey alone, that you've got people that get it, that really get it, that want to help you see another perspective on it. So that was the whole point of this. So thank you for joining us and being here. We will post below the video where you can individually find us if you want to get in contact with us. And I think that's it for the week. Until next week.
Just to recap, the one recap for the night, do not ever say, "Bring it on, universe." Can we get an amen? Can you guys give some hearts? And let us know that you are just going to wipe that from your vocabulary.
Don't say that. Don't. How good can this get? That's what we're switching into. Everything always works out, and how can this get?
What's the best that could happen, right? So instead of what's the worst, what's the best that could happen?
The best that could happen. Great.
Yes. Yep. All right, guys. Thanks for hopping on live with us tonight. If you're catching the replay, let us know you're watching the replay, and we will chat with you guys next week.
All right. Bye, guys.
All right. Bye.